Welcome to the Vietnamese Poetry Literature channel. Today we will listen to the work Red Number by author Vu Trong Phung. Let's listen. 3 days later, the old man really died. The whole family tried their best, calling from the Western quack to the Eastern quack, old and young, to properly practice the theory of many rotten teachers. When the old man died, Zon's honor became even greater, because it was very plausible that for 3 days he had been hiding in an unknown place, so much so that the old lady sent people to look for him but could not find him. Without the director of Zon newspaper, everything is missing. Genuine doctors have completely failed. As for the governor of Truc Non newspaper, seeing that his colleague Zon did not treat it, he thought it was a serious illness, so he did not dare to admit it. That is a lesson for those who dare to say that a person like Zon is from a low-class family, a vagabond, uneducated, a scoundrel, a pickpocket, etc. People invited both Mr. T and Mr. Lang Phi, but because they were so angry, they refused to seek treatment, just like the self-respecting famous doctors. People have thought about the sacred medicine at Bia Temple that had just cured a person with tuberculosis and a typhoid fever with black mud and buffalo dung, which was so effective that they lost their lives. And the superiors investigated and found out that there was a group of strongmen. The organization was sacred, but those tyrants also stole funds, so naturally it lost its sacredness. Such difficult things caused the over 80-year-old man to die peacefully. While the family was in turmoil, the waiter counted exactly 1,872 harsh sentences. I know, it's so hard, keep talking. Of great-grandfather Hong. That death made many people very happy. The cuckolded Mr. Fan was whispered in Mr. Hong's ear that he would give his daughter and son-in-law an additional amount of money of several thousand dong. He himself did not expect that the value of the invisible deer horns on his head would be so great. He thought that Zon had a great talent for advertising and could earn several thousand silver with just one word, so after receiving his father-in-law's precious promise, he immediately planned a business venture with Zon. Sir, are you a cuckold husband? Mr. Zon just said that and made him a few thousand silver. When Mr. Zon said roughly, Sir, this product is the best, sold in the West, must be more valuable. He wanted to meet Zon immediately to pay the remaining 5 dong. Before doing business, he had to maintain trust first. Great-grandfather Hong had closed his eyes to dream of the time when he was wearing a hemp suit, limply leaning on a cane, coughing and crying, causing people to point at him. Oh my son is getting old. That's it. He was 100% sure that everyone would praise a funeral like that, a stick like that. The concern of his son, Mr. Van Min, was only to invite a lawyer to witness his grandfather's death. So from now on, that will enter the period of practice and will no longer be an unrealistic theory. The only thing he was worried about was that he didn't know how to deal with red-haired Zon properly. Although Zon committed the crime of seducing one of his sisters and denounced the promiscuity of another of his sisters, his love flag caused the death of the old man who deserved to die. 2 small sins, 1 big grace. How? He hesitated, scratched his head, and always had a thoughtful expression on his face, which turned out to be fashionable, because his face was exactly like the face of a person whose family is in mourning and confusion. But really confused. The dead person, after a cursory examination by the superior mandarin, had been shrouded for nearly a day, yet Mr. Hong had not yet ordered a burial, even though all the funeral arrangements had been decided. The younger generation, that is, the daughters-in-law, began to shout that the older generation was slow. Tu Tan was crazy because he had cameras ready but he couldn't use them. Mrs. Van Min was impatient because she could never wear modern hemp clothes and a white hat with black trim, derniers créations. Once the westernized shops promote things that go well together, they can be sold to those who are in mourning and pain because the dead can also enjoy a little happiness in life. Mr. Tippin was very upset because he could not see his creations exposed to the public to see how the press criticized them. People blamed Mr. Van Min for not intervening skillfully, causing everything to be delayed. Mr. Hong kept closing his eyes and complaining that he was miserable. He was often fussy and drew messy stories. The reason the water has not recovered is only because of Toyot's incident, or what red-haired Zon did to Tuyot. Opening square bracket ... closing square bracket. The next morning, at exactly 7 o'clock, the funeral started. 2 police officers from the 18th Department, Min Do and Min Toa, were hired to keep order at the funeral. While there was no one worthy of punishment, while they were as sad as merchants about to go bankrupt, these policemen were extremely happy when they were hired, and took care of them wholeheartedly. So everyone in the funeral family was happy, except for Tuyot. Why didn't Zon come to pay his respects? Why didn't Zon go pick him up? Or does Zon despise me? Those questions caused Tuyot to suffer in a very legitimate way, to the point of wanting to commit suicide. Searching everywhere among the funeral mourners, she couldn't find her friend anywhere. Tuyot felt like she was pricked by a needle. Today, Tuyot is wearing an innocent outfit, a thin chiffon dye with a corset inside, which looks like her armpits and half of her breasts are exposed, but with black trim, and a pretty hat. Seeing that people said she was too spoiled, Tuyot dressed up as innocence to let people know that she had not lost her virginity. With a box of betel and areca leaves and cigarettes, Tuyot invited the guests very quickly, with a slightly romantic sadness on her face, very true to the loss of a family. Great-grandfather Hong's close friends had chests full of medals such as Bac Do Medal of Honor, Dragon Medal of Honor, Sao Men Medal of Honor, Van Tuong Medal of Honor, etc. On their lips and chins all had whiskers, or long or short, or black or tawny, or plump or bushy, curly. The big ears and big faces are right next to the coffin, when seeing the white skin peeking out from the chiffon shirt on the arms and chest. Tuyot, everyone was more moved than when they heard the plaintive and sorrowful sound of the Zon new trumpet. With a funeral in both Chinese, Western and Western ways, there are palanquins, roasted pigs and parasols, rattling and sucking cyclones, and wreaths of flowers, up to 300 couplets, several hundred people going to mourn. And there was a young boy named Tan in command. Amateur photographers competed with each other like at a fair. What a grand funeral that can make the dead person lying in the coffin smile happily, if not nodding his head. After walking 4 streets, while Tippin and his wife, Deputy Doan and Mr. Joseph, Theot, and a few others were whispering and criticizing Zon's attitude, they saw the whole group had to stop like the front row. Got into a car accident. At that moment, 6 cars, with a monk of Ba Bon Pagoda on top, each car covered with 2 parasols, crept in from one direction and took up the space behind the 5 black flags. 2 massive wreaths, one from Go Mo newspaper, one from Zon, also crept into the front row. Tu Tan quickly ran up to click the camera and went down to tell his mother. The old lady hurriedly ran up, then was deeply moved, because it was the part of Mr. Zon, the newspaper editor, and Mr. Zon, the advisor of Go Mo newspaper, so there was such solemnity added to the funeral. He happily exclaimed, "If I didn't have that dish, I wouldn't be missing much. Luckily, Mr. Zon thought about it for me." Master Tang Fu was happy and arrogantly sitting on a cart, because he was sure that among the people watching in the temples, there would be someone who would realize that he had overthrown the Buddhist Association. And that's the first triumph of the Go Mo newspaper. Red-haired Zon cut it off and put it there before going down to the mourners. Tuyot glanced at it and gave it love to express her thanks. People either praised it or hated it. Wherever the funeral goes, there is a ruckus. The whole city was in an uproar praising the large funeral, in accordance with great-grandfather Hong's wishes. People pay special attention to the mourning clothes of the European tailor shop as Mr. Tippin and Mrs. Van Min desired. The old lady was happy that Mr. Zahn was not angry but instead helped and paid such tribute, and the funeral was the most honorable of all. You guys just go. The Chinese trumpet, the Western trumpet, and the Chinese trumpet take turns to sound loudly. Everyone puts on a serious face, but in truth, they still whisper to each other, talking about their wives and children, about the house, about a newly purchased wardrobe, a newly sewn shirt. Of the hundreds of people who came to pay their respects, half were women, most of them modern, friends of Ms. Tuyet, Ms. Van Min, Ms. Hoang Hun, Ms. Doan, etc. They were truly elegant girls, so they flirting with each other, laughing with each other, commenting on each other, criticizing each other, being jealous of each other, dating each other, with the sad faces of people swinging ghosts. Mixed in with the cries and sarcasm of the mourners, one hears whispers like this. Whose baby is so good? The girl next to me is even more beautiful. Yes, that guy is ungrateful. Once upon a time, his wife left him. 2 husbands. Spring is boring. Awesome chest, too much dress. Will you be my matchmaker? Gold mine or lead mine? No, not dating at all. The wife is so fat, the husband is so skinny, he will grow horns. Etc. And there are many other fun and thoughtful sayings, very worthy of funeral mourners. You guys just go. Arriving at the grave, when lowering the coffin, young Tan, slovenly in a white robe, chastised each person one by one, either leaning on a cane, or bowing his head, or arching his back, or wiping his eyes like this, like that. Let him take a souvenir photo when he lands. His friends frantically jumped onto other graves to take pictures so the pictures wouldn't look the same. Red-haired Zahn stood solemnly holding his hat, next to the horned Mr. Fan. When Mr. Hong coughed and fainted, he also cried out loud, "Shut! Hurt! Hurt!" Everyone paid attention to that precious grandson-in-law. He cried so much that he wanted to calm down, but luckily Zahn stopped him from falling. Even though he struggled, he could not stand up completely. Under the big white scarf and fluttering white robe, Mr. Fan kept hunching over, crying endlessly. Hurt, hurt, hurt. Red-haired Zahn wanted to leave the coffin when suddenly he saw Mr. Fan put a $5 bill in his hand, folded 4 times. He held his hand so no one would see him, then went to look for Monk Tang Fu, lost in the crowd of 300 people. Sad and painful about the misfortunes of the sufferer. Novel Red Number posted in Hanoi newspaper from issue 40 dated October 7, 1936 and first published in book form in 1938. The main character of Red Number named Zahn, often called Zahn Redhair. He is an orphan, living a rough life in Hanoi by climbing tamarinds, climbing crocodiles, blowing trumpets to advertise illegal drugs, picking up rashes in the tennis yard. Zahn was arrested by the police but was rescued by Ms. Doan, a lewd Western tamarind, rescued and introduced to serve at the European tailor shop. From then on, Zahn began to participate in social reform. Thanks to memorizing articles advertising illegal drugs, he received the titles of medical school student and director of Zahn newspaper. He joined high-class society, had relationships with influential people, and was infatuated with Ms. Tuyet, Van Min's sister, the daughter of the very wealthy Hong. Zahn was also asked by Deputy Doan to teach Mr. Phuoc, her precious son, and was invited by Monk Tang Fu to be an advisor to Go Mo newspaper. Day by day, he became more and more respected and feared by many people. By accident, he caused the death of his great-grandfather, Hong's biological father. This death was expected by everyone in his family for a long time. Therefore, Zahn is grateful. Zahn was taken by Van Min to register for the tennis tournament, on the occasion of the King of Siam's visit to Tonkin. Using cunning tricks, he got 2 famous players arrested right before the match. Without a main player, Zahn had the opportunity to compete with the Siamese champion in front of the 2 kings, mandarins and thousands of people. To maintain peace with his neighboring country, he was ordered to lose. At the end of the match, Zahn spoke eloquently to the crowd to understand his sacrifice for the fatherland. He became a great man, a hero who saved the country. Zahn was also awarded the Legion of Merit, invited to join the Association for Enlightenment and Advancement of Virtue, and was accepted as the son-in-law of great-grandfather Hong. At the end of chapter 14, unintentionally, red-haired Zahn made his great-grandfather so angry that he thought he would die. Seeing that, he ran away in fear. Everyone thought that Zahn was a genuine physician. Because of his anger, he forgot his professional conscience. The excerpt here belongs to chapter 15 of the novel Red Number. Chapter titles have been omitted. At the end of the work, please support me with the like button and subscribe to the channel to listen to more works.